Thank you for this opportunity. Friends, I have a wonderful memory of when I was about in kindergarten, and my grandfather, Abraham C. Goldstein, who was an attorney, was selected to be the police court judge. And on that day, a police car picked us up. My mother, my brother Brad, and I went down to downtown Troy, and there was an installation. And I remember that part of that kind of installation was my grandfather receiving this black robe that was part of his profession. And one of the things that gives me great pleasure is that I have a black robe, and sometimes I wear it for special occasions, and it's my grandfather's judge roll, and it has inside of it ACG, Abraham C. Goldstein. It's very meaningful to me. And therefore, when I think about judges, I honor them and revere them. And this week's Torah portion, Shoftim, is Judges. It speaks how Israel is to establish a moral society, and the issues it confronts are quite comprehensive. It establishes the standards for judges. Show no partiality. Take no bribes. At the end it says, tzedek tzedek tirdof, justice you shall pursue. It articulates standards of ethical behavior for kings. The king must not accumulate wealth. The king must write his own Torah and read it and revere God's instructions and teachings. We are told that you're not to follow fake prophets who pretend to be full of wisdom and yet are frauds. You cannot try or convict a person without two witnesses. This is a very, very serious portion. There's a lot in it. It's worth reflecting upon because it kind of establishes a certain framework, a certain feeling about what do the Israelites believe about creating a moral and just society. One of the things that is absolutely clear is, of course, all the standards that are established here were not always achieved. They never are. But one of the things that characterizes the people of Israel, and I believe the Jewish people, is that we have very high ideals, and we strive to achieve them, and sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't, but we continue to strive. The final part of this portion is what fascinates me, and I want to explore with you this evening. Here is a situation, it's a little, just hold on and listen to what they're talking about. It says, a corpse is found, and a slayer is unknown. And the elders and magistrates, the judges, must go out and measure the distance from the corpse to the nearby town. The official leaders of the town closest to the victim must take responsibility for the burial. But before doing that, they must perform this ritual. It's called the Eglah Arufah, and make a declaration that they were not responsible for the murder. This is the ceremony, and it's somewhat brutal. They take a heifer, which has never been yoked. They bring it to a wadi, to a dry riverbed that has never been tilled or sown, and they break the heifer's neck. I mean, it sounds barbaric. And a priest of ancient Israel offers a blessing. And then the elders of the town wash their hands over the heifer and declare, our hands did not shed the blood, nor did our eyes see it done. Absolve, O Lord, your people Israel, who you redeemed, and do not let guilt of the blood of the innocent remain among your people Israel. And then at the very end of the portion, the end of this teaching, the Torah says, and they will be absolved of blood guilt. Thus you will remove from your midst guilt for the blood of the innocent, for you will be doing what is right in the sight of the Lord. It would be very easy to write this commandment off and say, it's primitive, it's irrelevant. part of the biblical past that we should just set aside and forget about it. I'm certainly not advocating and bringing it back, of course. But even this strange old tradition has a powerful message. The rabbis knew it was strange, but they derived from it an amazing lesson. Here is the question that they asked. What is this declaration all about? Why should the elders and the judges of the town have to swear that they were not involved? Is it conceivable that they might suspect the elders and the judges of committing murder? Of course, they didn't actually commit murder. The intent of the confession is to exonerate the elders of facilitating the travesty by their indifference. The rabbis are teaching us that this is what the elders are saying. We did not send him away without provisions, nor let him go unaccompanied. They're referring to the dead man. That is, we know the victim. He approached us and we did help him. We do not bear even an indirect responsibility for his death. What the rabbis were imparting to us is that while it is obviously forbidden to commit murder, it is also our responsibility to prevent murder and acts of violence from occurring in our society. And one of the outstanding teachers of Torah in Israel of the past century, Nechama Leibowitz, teaches, responsibility for wrongdoing does not only lie with the perpetrator himself, even with the accessory. Lack of proper care and attention are also criminal. Whoever keeps to his own quiet corner and refuses to have anything to do with the evil world, who observes oppression and violence and does not stir a finger in protest, cannot proclaim with a clear conscience that our hands have not shed the blood. We need this teaching in our world, where many people, including many of our leaders, don't want to take responsibility for most things. When we see injustice and violence, we may not wash our hands of responsibility and walk away. We are obligated to work together to eliminate the causes, the attitudes, and lifestyles which lead to a life of hatred and violence. A question for all of us is, should we hold our leaders to some standard? If our leaders know of an injustice, such as indifference to the needs of the poor or the marginalization of the weak, do we hold them accountable? Are there consequences? We know many leaders who usually address matters of life and death with this cliche, my thoughts and prayers are with them. I can't bear to hear those words ever again. I know with depressing certainty that this platitude will be repeated by countless public figures many times in the near future. It has become the go-to phrase to express sympathy for the deaths of those slaughtered by terrorists or mentally deranged persons in possession of semi-automatic rifles or the caging of innocent children at our southern border. This phrase is used freely in all kinds of situations where people want to pretend that they care, but really want to move on without caring at all. Condolences are important. Expressions of sympathy and sorrow are indicators of human sense of solidarity. But when evil occurs, and the public response is so rote, our sense of optimism about society falters. The Hallmark card response waiting to be taken off the shelf is inadequate. It is action that is needed. Something horrible happened in Israel this week. An Israeli teenager was gang raped during a visit to the resort town of Eilat. And one of the accused has said that as many as 30 men joined in the attack, shocking the nation as police begin to round up suspects. Outrage has been expressed. And on Twitter, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the attack was not only a crime against this girl, that this is a crime against humanity. that is worthy of all condemnation, and those responsible must be brought to justice. Israel is really exploding over this issue. My daughter Leora, who is a feminist, a rabbinical student, and quite a dedicated mother, went to a protest concerning this horrific event about protecting of women and violence against women. And she made a very interesting decision. She took our 5-year-old granddaughter with her, and I have a picture of our granddaughter Zoe holding a sign in Hebrew, "More destruction, more victims." At first, when Jane and I heard about this, we were surprised and we were concerned. And I asked Leora, what did Zoe understand of what was going on? Leora used it as an opportunity to teach her about appropriate touching and how she should not be afraid to tell people about such things. And then she said something that I believe is really profound. She said, "You need to know, Zoe, that when things happen to other people, which are bad, we need to stand up with them." I don't know if my granddaughter Zoe will end up in the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, as a magistrate, or even the prime minister. But I'm proud that she is being told, you cannot wash your hands of the injustices to others. You cannot pretend it isn't your responsibility. You can't pretend, oh, I live so far away from the murder, it's not the responsibility of our community. Shouldn't that standard be the one that we hold ourselves to? We're responsible. Can't put it off on anyone else. Shouldn't that standard be the one that we hold to our leaders who have been elected to take responsibility for this world? And not everything can be fixed. But leaders have to stand up and say, I'm responsible. You have given me power. I have to do the best I can to make this world better. Rosh Hashanah is a month away. This is the new month today of Rosh Chodesh Elul, the month before Rosh Hashanah. And I think that the question of personal responsibility, the question of government responsibility, the question of individual responsibility is one that we need to ask ourselves every day. Are we running away from what we do? Or are we responsible to get involved and to act? This lesson, this message, even though it sounds a little bit strange, it's a weird custom, it's a weird mitzvah, it has a powerful teaching for us on this Shabbat in the month in preparation for the new year. Shabbat Shalom. Let us continue, page